and welcome to the Corporate Burnouts. Hey, Mandy, we're back with
Hi.
another guest.
Yeah. We're so excited today. We have Annie Callaway on the podcast for the very first time, and she is one of our very favorites. We actually listen to her podcast every single week and edit it and do all the stuff for it. And we just love her energy on her podcast with Chad. And so we wanted to have her on because she had a long corporate career like us and took everything with her to start her own businesses and be an awesome entrepreneur. She is the owner and broker of the Realty One Group Trifecta office here in O'Fallon, Missouri. And she is the co-host, we'll say co-owner also of that, and co-host of Real Chat, a podcast that's loosely related to real estate with her partner Chad. And we just love them. And we would have had both of you on, but we really wanted Annie to come on today to talk about her corporate career because she came from corporate, but also to talk about how it's helped her in starting businesses and being a realtor and now a broker and all the other things in between. So welcome to the podcast, Annie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you get us started and just tell us about your corporate career? We want to hear all about it.
Okay. So I worked for McDonald's Corporation for 25 years. So I left there when I was like 40. I mean, I started with McDonald's at 16, went to college, stayed there, became a manager, and then kind of worked my way up through the ranks of corporate America. And I actually loved my corporate experience. McDonald's was a great company to work for, but it was hard with kids. And so that was the main reason that I ended up leaving McDonald's, was really because I was traveling all the time. Our regional office left St. Louis and we were in Kansas City, and it just required a lot of traveling. And my kids were getting ready to, I had a middle schooler and a high schooler. So after 25 years of doing that, I took a huge leap and went out on my own.
We hear that a lot from a lot of our guests. They're like, corporate is not for mothers, like
It's hard.
It's
they
hard.
expect too much sometimes, and you're just like, I can't work at this pace. And we obviously came from a traveling job as well, and it can be impossible, right?
Yeah.
So, can you fill us in just a little bit more on the middle? So, what did you do when you were traveling? What was your job?
Yeah. So when I left McDonald's, I was a business consultant. So my job was to consult the franchisees on their business. So I had about 30 restaurants, and the territory that I had was some in St. Louis, but I went all the way to Arkansas, Branson, just kind of like that whole trek. So I was gone all the time. And my job was, like I said, was just to consult those owner operators. Before that, I was a training consultant. So, a lot of people don't know, but McDonald's training is like top notch. Like, Hamburger University is a real thing in Chicago. I never worked for Hamburger University, but I attended the classes, and I taught classes here in St. Louis when we had a regional office. So I did that for about 3 years.
I love that. It sounds like your corporate experience is very, very similar to ours.
Yeah.
Obviously, we came from Texas Roadhouse, but the term consultant is very close to coach. We were marketing coaches doing the exact same thing, going from restaurant to restaurant, coaching and guiding them on their marketing strategies. And it sounds like from the business perspective and in the training world, very similar model. So I totally hear you when you say it's difficult as a mom to keep going on that. And again, it's eerie to me how similar those paths are. I was a teenager when I started working at Texas
same.
Roadhouse, and 40 when I left, with
So
kids in middle
absolutely the
school, going
same.
into high
Yeah.
school. It's right there the same. So I totally hear you. So when you left McDonald's and decided that you were going to go out on your own, what did you start first? How did you take that leap, and what did you leap into?
So my daughter was dancing at Excel Performing Arts, and the owner at the time, who is now my business partner, I'm also half owner of Excel Performing Arts Dance Studio.
Oh, I
She
missed that.
was a dance teacher, and she just didn't really have that experience on the business side. So I kind of started helping her out. And then I was also at the same time getting into some real estate investing and taking some classes on that. So I made Jamie, is her name, I made her an offer to be half owner and run the business side of the dance studio. So that's when I officially gave my notice and left McDonald's. I was doing that. So a dance studio, though, is if you're not the dance teacher, and I am not the dance teacher. So nobody needs to worry about that. But it's a part-time business at most. So I needed to always do something else as well since I didn't teach dance. So I'm probably what you would call a serial entrepreneur. I owned a Clear. I don't even know what we called that back then. It wouldn't be a franchise, but I sold Clear. If you remember, that was one of the first portable internets that came
Okay.
about. Kind of like with Cricket phones. Clear was kind of
Yeah.
that same level, and just did that with a business partner in Chicago. And while we were doing that, we would watch this kiosk next to us in the mall, and they were cash for gold. And so we started a cash for gold business. We were called Gold Stop. And that's actually how I met Chad. I hired him. He was like 21 years old, hired him to run one of the kiosks. So we did cash for gold when gold was great. That was a great business. But then, gold prices started falling. And so pivoted again. And I did some consulting because that was my real profession. I was consulting a dance studio in California, which I still do. And that's Mather Dance Company. They actually won World of Dance, the TV show. So they're a
Oh,
pretty
cool.
big deal. Shannon Mather's a choreographer. So I still do that. And then I had, like I said, had done some real estate investing. I had owned a 44 unit apartment building and we had flipped some houses. Sometimes I think I have bad luck. I try to always be positive about this, but I started doing some of that in '06 before the market crashed. So that was another pivot. And so then became a landlord and kept a lot of rental properties. And then in 2017, decided to actually officially get my real estate license and sell real estate. Well, the corporate background never leaves you. And it was so incredibly frustrating. This is probably going to insult a lot of realtors and brokers out there, but there wasn't a lot to help you become a really successful realtor. And so decided, well, my training background and my consulting background, I could make a big difference for a lot of realtors and become a broker and offer that training and that coaching that I got in corporate America. And so in 2019, we opened the brokerage. So somewhere in there, I'm not sure of the exact dates. And that was really to provide that corporate experience of training and systems and all of those things that I learned from McDonald's and put it into real estate. So, and here we are.
You weren't kidding. Serial entrepreneur.
I know, and I'm probably forgetting something because I also did a lot of MLMs along the way, makeup, candles, like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's freaking awesome. And maybe we just found the big difference between me and you. I also know about you that you are a serial gambler too. Like you do love the casino.
Yeah, I would like to do that full time.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be fun?
Do you know, though, our friend Andrew is an excellent poker player, and he is a headhunter, and he has a business that he helps people get people hired, and
I thought you were going to say he helps people win at the casino. I was
no,
like, sign me up.
he needs to consult on that, right? So, but he last year went to the World Series of Poker for the first time and did really well.
Nice.
And since then, he has kind of put his business on the back burner and he's playing poker full time because
Wow.
he's, you know what I mean? He's kind of really gotten in there and figured it out. So it could happen. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't play that kind of poker.
No, you're like, I
I
play
play
slots. Yeah.
video poker.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't like the slots either.
No,
I
that's
play
not as fun.
solitaire on my phone and I
Yeah,
do
that
it
is
for
not the
free.
same. We are not the same.
I
No.
am not a financial risk taker. And I look up to you in that way, just from hearing, the serial aspect of your entrepreneurship. Those are all really big risks. Like you're banking on yourself and it takes a lot of confidence.
And I do think that that's a good segue there. I do think the gambling part of me has a big factor in that.
Oh,
because
I
I
think
am
they're
willing to
totally
risk
one
it
and the
all.
same. You are willing
All
to
in.
bet on yourself every single
Absolutely.
time. And
Mhm.
that really speaks to your just personal confidence in that you're going to get shit done. You're going to figure out a way to do it because you put yourself in positions where you have no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never bet. Well, I always tell my son is my gambling partner now too, besides Chad, but you just can't bet with scared money. Meaning like
Yeah.
you can't go to the casino with your house payment. You gotta,
Yeah.
No.
and so it's kind of the same in this. I mean, you've got to have a plan. Either way, when you start a business, you can't have to have that paycheck right away. You've got to be able to invest in your business, invest in yourself, and so it is risky. It is not for the faint of heart, for sure.
I have a hard time with that. I think I would own several businesses if I was more willing to take a chance because I'll see something I'm like, oh, I'm really passionate about that. I want to do that. But yeah, it's hard to bet on yourself,
Yeah.
like especially knowing your bandwidth. And, like right now we have two things going, a business and a podcast. It's like, that might be enough for me. But like every single day, you're like, and the dance studio and the,
Yeah.
like,
But I have
oh
a lot
yeah.
of amazing people,
Yeah.
and I think that is probably one of the biggest things I got from my corporate background. McDonald's spent a lot of time training us and coaching us on how to be better people and how to inspire and motivate other people. And that's your job as a consultant, is to help other people be successful. And so, at the dance studio, I have a great business partner. Here I have a great business partner. So it's always taking what other people are good at and letting them be good at it. And
Mhm.
then you stay in the background and do what you're good at. I don't need to be the one in the spotlight or the one,
Mhm.
I just like to see a great idea and then figure out how to make that better.
Yeah, identifying the talent and putting people in the right seat to be able to do what it is that they're good at so that you
Yeah.
can stay in your lane and do what you're really good
Yeah.
at. That's brilliant.
I read that in the Rich Dad Poor Dad, that book,
Mhm.
Rich Dad Poor
Mhm.
Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. He said, let the experts do what they're experts at. And so I don't need to micromanage anybody. I don't need to know, I just need to know that you're an ethical person and that, you're a hard worker and you're coachable. And
Something that I really wanted this episode to talk about and for you to help us talk about is we hear people say all the time, they're like, but I wasted 15 years, 25 years, 40 years. I mean, hopefully people aren't working for more than 40 years, but I wasted all this time in corporate. And it's like, oh no, that is not a waste. And I'm sure I've said it here on this podcast. I could not have started my business if I didn't have the exact boss that I had, the exact job, the exact, corporate experience. Because otherwise, where would I have learned all of that? Because if I would
Yeah.
have
you
maybe,
wouldn't have,
no, I
right?
wouldn't have. And I think every single one of those people, the ones who pushed me, the ones who were unfair, the ones who were, you know what I mean? Like everybody, because
Yes.
they all taught me something, whether it was something leadership wise or whether, so now I can lead my team well, or it was just systems that they used that made it so that my business could actually run and it wasn't just off the top of my head at all times. Like
Yeah.
I had processes that I wanted to stick to, and some of it was what not to do, and some of it was but all of it is so important, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't had the exact experience that I had, because working for a small business, I could have gotten the marketing experience that I needed, all of this digital marketing experience, but I wouldn't have had all the soft skills that I had to learn to be good at my corporate job.
Right.
Yeah. Annie, in your experience, being a broker now and working with the real estate agents, what aspects, whether it's soft skills or tangible skills, what do you think is the most lacking that people would be more likely to have coming out of a corporate experience rather than a realtor that, you know, doesn't have that background? What's the disconnect?
So let's see. I think for me, if I just start with for me being a real estate agent, one thing you learn, and you guys were in the restaurant industry, and of course I'm going to say fast food was probably way more brutal, but maybe not. But you also learned that you weren't going to die. Like we weren't building nuclear warheads or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was okay to learn and to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's one thing that new realtors or, people that never had that corporate experience, it's a lot more anxiety for them thinking that everything has to be perfect every time. And in a real estate transactions, it's not that way. Every day is different. Every deal is different. But if you're doing it, with integrity and you're following all the systems that are in place and you're following the rules, you can survive. And again, nobody's going to die.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point because I can remember especially early on in my restaurant career, it being like the anxiety of like being so busy and having so much going on. And it feels overwhelming, especially like if somebody's upset or something really does go wrong. And there does finally come a light bulb moment where you're like, we're not saving lives here. Like, if I
Right,
screw up today, you still
right.
get to go home. Like, this is just a
Right.
meal.
You weren't performing heart
You're
surgery
going to
or,
have
right.
3 more meals tomorrow and you won't remember
Sorry, we
this one.
shorted you a cheeseburger.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a huge piece of it being in that world. But
Yeah.
I
but
hadn't
at the
really
same-
thought about how that applies to people who haven't had that experience to go, oh, this is actually
Yeah.
not an emergency.
Right. Everything cannot be an emergency all the time. Everything, I mean, you've got to have standards and you've got to have your priorities right, but you don't have to overreact to everything. And, even at, just at McDonald's, they just taught so much with the training. There was the best way to do everything. But then, as you became a manager, you learned how to approach people where things aren't confrontational. We're always looking for the win-win. I don't think that that's a skill that people are taught in life. That's a skill you're taught in corporate America, how to
Yeah.
negotiate and how to have a win-win. Doesn't have to always be win-lose. So that's probably something that a lot of realtors go into a real estate transaction and think that for me to serve my client, if I have the seller and you have the buyer, I have to win and you have to lose. And I don't believe that. I believe that both of us can win for our client.
Yeah. Everybody needs to walk away happy.
Yeah. And so, every situation, there's just no situation out there for me that can't have that if
Yeah.
both parties are willing.
That's really huge. I never really thought about it like that, but when you do work for a corporation, like we're all on the same team here, right? So we have to figure out how everybody wins. I Did you ever think about it like that, Mandy? I don't, you know what I mean? Like I'm not sure that I ever like thought about it like that. But yeah, you can't that's how we run our business too. It's not like, listen, these are our prices. This is what, like you get on board or you get out, right? And we have to run our business as let's make it so that we win and you win, right? We
Right.
don't have contracts because we want to make sure that we both want to be here. And I don't want to hold you hostage if you're not enjoying your service. Or more likely, what happens more often to us is we don't have the budget for that anymore. We need to shift our budget. But I don't want anyone to lose when we're
Right.
doing business with them. And I never really thought about, I just figured that was just a me thing, that I'm not a killer in business, but it could just be that
Yeah.
that's how we always, that's how we always learned.
Part of my job at McDonald's as a business consultant was we graded restaurants. I mean, like we physically came in unannounced and graded restaurants. And I think that similar to, to doing real estate or dance studio or whatever, but always coming in not as a grader, as a partner. Whether it was good news or bad news, there was still, you treat people the way you want to be treated. Nobody's better than anybody else, explaining, coaching. But, everybody's goal is to have better systems. Everybody's goal is to serve the customer. Every realtor's goal is to get their client the house at the best price with the best, negotiations. And so,
Yeah, but the competition aspect of it, to your point earlier, like that really gets the best of people sometimes, I can imagine, like in wanting to win. And I would say even in our corporate world, while Mandy, you're right, we did take away that we want our clients to be happy with their service. When I put myself back in those corporate shoes, our competition was really from within, never with the customer.
yeah.
And I can remember dealing with managers along the way who would want to argue, would want to fight. And you're like, you
Right.
do realize these people are paying your bills, right? Like, shut up and give them what they want. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, let them win.
Yeah, but you can't have any ego. And I
Right.
think that
Right.
that some people can't figure out how to get rid of that regardless of their training, but it got beat out of me in
Right.
corporate for sure. Cause it's like, listen, we didn't ever go in to grade anybody. There were people who did that to make sure that the food safety was all there and things like that. We were there to influence people, but there were so many owners that felt very sure about their marketing plan. Or I mean, I could talk all day about the people who are like, we are so busy, we don't need marketing. And I'm like, that makes me want to die, because you're wrong. You will need marketing at some point, right? And you should probably get ahead of it, because
Yeah,
it doesn't
don't wait
work
till you need
tomorrow.
it.
But it's like none of that was about me, right? So I needed to coach and teach and
Right.
give them all of the reasons why. And I think that in the end, it's like, I will never again try and talk somebody into something that they don't want to do, right?
Right.
So with our clients, I don't have any ego, because it's like you get to make all the decisions. Like I at least was held accountable to really trying to convince them to do the things that we needed them to do in corporate, because they were going to make them more money. But now it's like, I will give you all the reasons why you should do this, and then you can maybe use us or maybe use somebody else, but I don't care about your ego, and I'm not going to bring mine to
Yeah,
it.
that's a huge lesson that I learned being a business consultant that I use every day in real estate. Is it's not about you at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And that's, like with the real estate transaction, same with an owner operator at McDonald's, they could either choose to do it or not, like you said, with the marketing, but same thing with the real estate transaction. It's not my choice. My job is to show you all the options, give you all the support I can give you, explain the consequences of every option that you could take, and then say, choose. And it was the same, as a business consultant. Here are the options, and you could choose whatever you want. You could choose to have your franchise revoked. I mean, but at the end of the day, that was your choice. Or you could choose,
Yeah.
and you don't always know the best either. That's the problem with a lot of people in corporate America. They think because they have a title that they know best, and that's not true. You have to be open to learning from the people you're consulting.
Worse than that, Annie, though, I think is a lot of people in that corporate America setting feel like with that title, they're supposed to know. And so they will give you very confident answers right out of
Yeah.
their ass when they don't actually
Yeah.
know. Like
I was really
one thing that I learned at Roadhouse that I will forever be grateful for is it is okay to not know. It is
right.
okay to say, I don't know, but let me find out. I'm going to go learn. I'm going to ask and use my resources, and then we will learn the answer to this together. But if I just tell you what I think and state it as fact, especially with any kind of title coming from a leadership position as a coach, you would assume that if your coach tells you something, that they would know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So if you just pull it out of the air,
Yeah.
people
I
believe
was
it.
lucky to have some great bosses, because back in the day when I was, I'm a lot older than you guys. So when I was going through that, it was a male dominated world, corporate America was. And, there was a lot of egos, but I had some great bosses that, that taught that, you don't know, and it's okay to say you don't know and go find the answer. And I know that was one of the, that struggles that a lot of people have, is because everybody thinks they have to know the answer, and you don't.
Do you
You can
find that
say, "Oh, that's a great question. Let's go find that out." And with Google, and AI, you can find almost anything now.
really fast? Yeah. Do you find that that is a common issue with real estate agents that because I know every transaction is different, right? Every deal that you do is completely different than the last. Do you find that they find it hard to admit when they don't know because it makes them feel like, oh, maybe I don't look like I'm very good at my job, or from a
Yes.
confidence perspective?
Yes. That specifically is one of the reasons I wanted to be a broker. And as a broker, you're constantly getting the questions. And so it's easy to just give the answers, to tell somebody what the answer is. But like you said, it's not always the same answer. But everything that we do as a real estate agent goes back to the contract. The contract is the law. And so to always say to the agent, well, where would you find that? And to teach them how to go back to the contract and figure it out for themselves. They don't teach that at real estate school. And to your point, no two deals are ever the same. I get asked questions all the time, by clients, and I'm like, that's a good one. That never came up before. And, instead of saying, oh, well, this is the answer, I say, well, let's go read that. That's in the contract. Let's read that together and figure that out.
I think that it would be so powerful just to sit in your shoes and be able to turn that into a superpower rather than that negative thing that goes through a realtor's head when they get a question that, scares them a little bit. And it's like, oh, I don't know. You're more relatable. People are probably drawn to you because you're authentic. Like if you don't know, you tell me and then we learn together. And then now I know something and you know it too. And we both
Right.
actually can validate that we got the right answer instead
And
of
just to say,
blowing
oh, wow, that's
smoke.
never come up. Or, you know what? I had that once, but I don't even remember. Or,
Yeah.
and you can just make it like, where would you find that information? Even if you do know the answer, like half the time I do know the answer,
Yeah.
but it's still, that's that whole give a man a fish
Yep.
or
Yeah.
teach him how to fish,
Or teach them how. Yep.
Plus, I don't want my phone to ring forever.
No.
I would like for them to learn how to figure that out for themselves. And
I was taught, gosh, and I don't even know if I could name exactly who I could credit because I've heard it so many times, that the sign of a really, really good leader is somebody who can go away for 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long, and actually not be missed because their team has everything that they need and they know how to find what it is that they need to problem solve, rather than somebody who can't take a vacation because their team needs them so much. You're
and
actually
wear
a
that
better
like a
leader.
badge of honor. Right.
Yes.
Nope. I
Yeah,
agree
you're a
with you.
better leader if your team is self-sufficient and you've set them up for success and taught them.
That's one of our philosophies is with our agents is train them so well that they could go anywhere and have an amazing career, but treat them so well that they're never going to leave you.
Yeah. You guys do such a good job at that. I want you to go into here in a minute after we're done with this conversation. I want you to go into Wake Up to Win because I think that that's so huge. And I assume that it comes from something in your corporate career, because we all have those things where we're like, that worked so good. But I think that something that people don't realize that they're getting from corporate is leadership skills and everything that you guys have been talking about. And I'm just sitting here nodding. It's like it's all learned leadership skills and then taking them and figuring it out. So if I were to go work for a small business and this person had never been in corporate, they might not, unless they're that self-motivated learner where they're doing all of the self-help and reading all of the books about leadership. I'm probably going to have a harder time with them than somebody who came from corporate because there's so much. I mean, we helped run a women's leadership series, like conference series in our corporate career, and they were always working on the leaders. Like everything was about making everyone a better leader, even the people who weren't yet leaders, but wanted to be. And that is something that corporations, the good ones anyway, that they put the money in and they really invest in their people to make them good leaders. And they're still bad leaders, like that's just some people's egos can't get out of the way. But for the most part, people are picking up those things, even if they can't do every single thing that is told to them about how to be a great leader. If you leave your corporate career, you should have some leadership skills.
Yeah,
to be able
McDonald's,
to
the
speak of.
self-development was unmatched. That's the only corporation I worked for. But I mean, we got so much training and so much development on how to be a better leader. And then really a better person, and at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Again, the good ones will take care of their people because they know that it helps. They know that it helps with retaining employees. They know that it on so many levels, the people who are in leadership and getting that to the people who you're treating a certain way because you have learned and we came from the same kind of company that.
Well, yeah. And I'm sure it was the same for you guys. It wasn't easy to get employees and it wasn't easy. I'm going to go back in the 80s and the early 90s. It was very hard to staff a McDonald's restaurant. And, you couldn't get great people that wanted to work hard and show up every day. And so you had to take the people that you got and you had to learn how to motivate and inspire them to be the best that they could be. Maybe they were never going to run their own restaurant or do something, but maybe they could be the best French fry cooker that
Yeah.
McDonald's ever had. And so,
Because the
you know,
caliber of people that say, "Hi, I want to work at McDonald's," or "I want to work in the kitchen," or in food service, like it's rarely going to be your college educated,
you had to make it really fun. Like it
yeah.
had to be really,
You got to give
and
it
mine was always, it's
the
fun to be
incentive.
good. It's fun to win. It's fun to be the best. We were always the fastest drive through and the cleanest restaurant. And that's how you get people. And it's the same. It's the same with real estate. Everyone's not going to be a high producer, and a real estate rock star, but there's a place for everybody. And
Yes.
everybody, you just have to be able to motivate and inspire them to be their best, not your expectation, but what they can be. And
Yep.
McDonald's definitely gave me that. I probably would not have ever learned that on my own.
Yeah. Well, tell us about waking up to win, because I think that that's
Mhm.
something that makes your brokerage really, really stand out and makes your realtors. I mean, I literally, I don't think we mentioned this, that you're a client of ours, but we have a lot of clients, and I know a lot of real estate offices, and your realtors are always looking to grow, right? And they're good people, and there's no, I don't want to say this wrong. There's no like just shitbags who are just like, like,
Right.
but there are those kind of realtors out there, there's those kind of people out there doing every
Right.
kind of profession. And it's because of the culture for sure of Trifecta. It's a lot of things, but whenever you focus every single day on getting better and wanting to win, I mean, you can't help but have a whole bunch of winners, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. So when we first started the brokerage, the typical brokerage business model is to have a weekly meeting or a monthly sales meeting. And we decided in the beginning we were going to be the unbrokerage. We were going to be different. And so we decided, and the question we ask ourselves all the time is, what do people need? Not what you want. What do you want to give them? Where's the need? Where's the gap? What's the gap you can fill? And so one thing with realtors or anybody who's an entrepreneur, especially when you're working for yourself, nobody's making you get up in the morning, nobody's making you show up for work. So the real opportunity is, how do you motivate and inspire your agents to show up for themselves every day? They're not showing up for me. They're showing up for themselves. So we went to a morning phone call. We call it Waking Up to Win. It's at 10 o'clock every morning. You get on or not. It's totally up to you. It's optional, but it's a way for you to plug in every day. And our topics are anywhere from training, we'll do things on contracts, or if one real estate agent, has a situation over the weekend, we might use that as a learning for everybody and get on and discuss that. But I do a lot of things that I pull out of the vault from all of my corporate years of self development, a lot of concepts and theories that I was taught through, whether, I still bring 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I did that in the 80s. It's still relevant today.
Yeah.
McDonald's took us through a training. I don't even remember what the name, but the company was called Send Delaney. And we had all of these different leadership concepts. We do those. I'm always a student of any kind of self development. So I do a lot of things like that. And so we try to make the phone call 15 to 30 minutes at the most long. And it's just things that realtors need, things to motivate you, inspire you, teach you, train you, but to get you motivated to run your business to be the most successful that you can be for you. And I think that's the vibe. That's the culture. Is it's not about us. It was never about us. It's always about you. Is there a plus side on this side? Of course there is, but that's not what it's
Yeah.
about.
Well, I think that you guys are successful and have so many high producers in your brokerage because you don't make it about you. And I won't bring up, I mean, I could actually link the episode here, and we will link your podcast because I think a lot of people need to listen to it. But I'll link specifically the one where you talk about when you started the brokerage and why, because it's an interesting story for sure. But and I won't sell anyone down the river, but you worked at a brokerage before you started your own brokerage. You were a realtor. And it wasn't like, it was a brokerage who was into making money, right? And you guys are a brokerage that makes money, but because you take care of the people first, right? You build up these people, and the outcome is that it makes you money, right? But you're not taking huge percentages of their, because you would think, if I'm going to give you all this extra attention and coaching and teaching, you'd think for that you will pay higher percentages to the brokerage, right? But instead you're like, we're going to give you a lot more money than the brokerages usually give you. And doing it that way, most people are like, let's go straight to the money. And you're like, let's go to the development, which leads to more money. And that
Yeah,
is a corporate
that
way to
comes
think.
with, yeah, and I think that also came with me from age and understanding like what people, it's not about what you need. It's about, it's about your why. And my why was to, truly change the trajectory of other people's lives. And, and that was a way to do that, but a lot of people go into their own business thinking that they're doing it to make money. It's never the money. And I learned that from my corporate life, but you got to figure out what your why is. Why are you doing this business? Because it's never the money. And a lot of people will tell you it's the money. And if it's not, we just say, try harder to figure that out. And Chad and I have different whys, but they both work out. And mine is to change other people's lives to be the best that they can be. And the byproduct is whether it's the dance studio or a gold kiosk or a real estate brokerage, it's when you understand what your why is, then you can do that.
Yeah, it still comes back to impacting other people's lives.
I love this conversation, and I love, I mean,
We could go at it all day.
we have so much in common, and we just love talking to you. But what I want people to really understand, and we talked through so much of this, but can you think of any other things specifically when it comes to skills and processes and anything that you took with you that would remind people that they really aren't leaving with nothing? Everything that you do in your corporate career really does pay off and help you when you go to start your own business, when you go to work for a smaller business or whatever.
Yeah, gosh. It is funny because when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you have no idea that you're gaining all of those things. And, yeah, they say that with every experience, whether it's the corporate job or your childhood friends or whatever, you take something from all of that. But yeah, when you leave that corporate world and you want to be an entrepreneur, I think that you have already put yourself at a higher level than someone who's going to be an entrepreneur, right out of the gate. There's so much that other people have poured into you that you take with you. So I don't know how to quantify that though. For me, from McDonald's, it was how to treat people, how to, how to take somebody from where they are and get them to their highest potential. McDonald's is all about systems. And so I talk about that all the time. There has to be a system for everything. At McDonald's, it didn't matter where you went in the world, a Big Mac is a Big Mac, and it tastes the same.
Yeah.
And it should be that way with, any business that you're running. And probably the thing that we didn't talk about today that I think a lot of real estate agents miss is that you got to have a business plan. You can't just be out there. You can't just be out
winging it.
there trying to make it happen. You got to start with your why. You got to have a vision. You got to have a mission. And then you've got to have goals, and you've got to know how you're going to achieve those goals. And otherwise, I
And
tell
all
my
of
agents
that
all the
structure is corporate structure.
time, all of it is.
Yeah.
All of it is. And if you don't have it, I tell my agents the days, the hours become days, become weeks, become months. And before you know it, the year is over and you haven't done anything.
Yep.
And so, corporate America did that for you.
Yeah.
You had somebody always keeping you on track, and you do not have that as an entrepreneur. And if you didn't learn that in corporate America, I don't know where you learned it.
Yeah, you might not. Well, if you are a realtor in the St. Louis area and you don't have a corporate background, Annie can help you with that, help get all the structure that you need to be successful and to make your real estate business an actual business, and teach you how to, I mean, some of these people probably haven't ever made a goal for real, like things like that.
Right.
It's like her and Chad are the very best people to help you succeed at this if you feel like there's not structure here. because I never learned it,
Yeah.
And for anybody who is like, I didn't take anything away from corporate, I could never do that, or it's like, just think back. You did learn something. You did, there's something that you can take with you. And I think that I went through it, and a lot of people do, the imposter syndrome. And it's like, go back to
For
the basics
sure.
of what you know, right? Because our business, we do a lot of things that we did in corporate, but we do a lot of things that we never touched at all.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can write all those things down, here are all the things that I was good at, here are all the things that that I learned, it's like you might just be blocking it out and you don't even know that you have all these skills that you're
Oh,
taking
for
with you.
sure. You're
Mhm.
using it for
Mhm.
sure.
Well, we loved having you on
Yeah,
today.
I love being on. Thanks for that vote of confidence at the end
Oh,
too.
yes, of course. We are so confident in you and Chad, and we love having you as clients and friends, and we love learning with you. Mandy was talking about earlier that, or I mean, you both touched on it, that like you have to be open to saying, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And we absolutely just love that you guys let us learn with you, right? We never
Yeah.
have to feel bad for saying, this is not what we're experts
No.
at. And Chad's like, well, can you be an expert at that? And we're like, sure,
I can learn. Thank
Yeah.
you for the kick in the butt. I will
But the
go do
thing is
that.
that even it's so
We're all on the
crazy.
same team.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it's even that is the win-win, you know?
This is such a win-win, obviously. Doing business with people can be a big win-win, but specifically with you guys, we feel like you guys are pushing our business to grow. And
Yeah.
so everything that you have learned and everything that Chad has just is and has learned has pushed us forward. And
Yeah, ditto, right back at you.
yeah, I love that. I love this partnership.
Well, I would
Yeah.
add to that also from a completely different angle, just getting to work with you guys on your podcast, Real Chat. I told Chad the other day, and I did already admit this to Mandy. I was like, when I edit this podcast weekly, like it kind of makes me want to be a realtor. And Chad was like, yeah.
Well, come on,
And I was
girl.
like, here's the deal. I'm not trying to move to Missouri. I'm a Texas girl. I'm staying right where I'm at. I'm also not trying to do that without you guys, because it's you guys that make me think, oh my gosh, this could be so great. But it's just a testament to the fact that what you're doing is working, and like it's magnetic, right? It's very attractive. So you guys are doing a killer
Well,
job, and
thank
I'm
you.
just proud to be a part of it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
such a love fest. I love
I
it.
know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
And yeah, I will put in the show notes everywhere that they can follow you and where they can listen to the podcast and all the things.
All right.
Yeah. All
Thanks,
right.
Thanks,
Annie.
Thank you.
ladies.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.